What changes occurred in Europe between 1500 and 1750? At the start of the 16th century, the papacy, the center of the Roman Catholic Church, was the primary religious and intellectual authority. In order to raise funds to construct glamorous buildings that would enhance the standing of the papacy, the church sold indulgences, which were the sale of forgiveness for past sins. German monk Martin Luther believed that this practice was immoral and corrupt. As a result, he wrote the 95 Theses condemning the Catholic Church for their actions and nailed it on the church door. His work resulted in the Protestant Reformation. Luther insisted that the only way to salvation was through faith in Jesus Christ. He declared that Christian belief should be based on the Word of God in the Bible, not through the authority of the Pope. Luther won the support of powerful German rulers, and his stand against the Church inspired another major Reformation leader, John Calvin. Shocked by the intensity of Protestant movements, the Church called a meeting at Trent to reform its practices, particularly the ones accused of corrupt by Protestants. The Catholic Reformation happened with the support of Charles V, the Roman Emperor, and his son King Philip II, King of Spain. Thanks to their efforts, Catholicism remained dominant. In the late 16th and 17th centuries, an extraordinary fear of witches that swept across Europe was a powerful testimony to the endurance of these beliefs among commoners and governing class alike. Witch hunts were based on the belief in white and black magic.
Sir, I've captured a witch.
Really? Which witch is this?
It's the one that's been freezing all our crops.
How do you know this?
I caught her looking at the plants funny. Yeah, and she lives by herself. Everyone knows an unmarried woman can't be trusted.
This is a very convincing argument. I'm afraid...
This is outrageous. I haven't done anything wrong. These idiots are just being sexist.
Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure you're a witch because looking at the plants and being unmarried is pretty irrefutable evidence.
Kill her!
Burn her!
Well, just to be sure, we can do our state-of-the-art witch testing. We'll just throw her into the water. If she thinks she's innocent, if she floats, she's guilty.
That's genius.
There's no better way.
That doesn't make any sense.
Get on. She's floating. She's a witch. Kill her.
Only with the rise of central governments in the 18th century did the witch hunts finally end. Beginning in the 16th century, European understanding of the natural world was transformed by a new form of scientific inquiry that emphasized on experimentation. This is known as the scientific revolution.
Nicholas Copernicus was born on February 19, 1473 in Turin, Poland. Circa 1508, Copernicus developed his own celestial model of a heliocentric planetary system. In the heliocentric system, the 12 positions cover an entire range of the possible locations of Venus around the Sun as viewed from Earth. In the geocentric system, the 12 positions cover an entire range of the possible locations of Venus on its elliptic path as it travels around the Earth. Under the geocentric model, it requires that Venus always lie closer to the Earth than the Sun does. Venus can never pass behind the Sun. Venus can never be illuminated with more than a crescent portion.
Oh, I think I see something.
Galileo Galilei was a mathematics professor who made pioneering observations of nature with long-lasting implications for the study of physics. He also constructed a telescope and supported the Copernican theory, which supports a sun-centered solar system. Galileo was accused twice of heresy by the Church for his beliefs, and wrote a book on his ideas. He died in Arcetri, Italy, on January 8, 1642.
Eureka! Newton's universal law of gravity is still used today, and allowed us to add to those celestial bodies too, heralding the space age. Newton's formula helped engineers work out how much energy we needed to break the gravitational bonds of Earth, the path of every astronaut, and the orbit of every satellite from which we benefit. Whether for communications, Earth observation, scientific research around Earth or other planets, global positioning information was calculated using this simple formula. During the late 17th century, a movement named the Enlightenment radically changed European politics, philosophy, and science. It was characterized by a few enlightened people who challenged the status quo and gave their own ideas about the world. One of the most influential Enlightenment thinkers was John Locke, an English physician and philosopher. In his essay concerning human understanding, he put forth a theory that humans began as a blank slate, and that the sense of self and knowledge came from experience. Essentially, he suggested that everyone is born equal, and he argued that because of this, everyone should have the natural rights of life, liberty, and property. These ideas earned him the title of the father of liberalism, and were adapted by future thinkers. Today, his idea of natural rights can be found anywhere from the U.S. Constitution to the ideology of the United Nations.
City growth caused bourgeoisie to become wealthy from manufacturing, finance, and trade. Merchants and governments formed partnerships, formed joint stock companies and stock exchanges. Governments improved European transportation and infrastructure. Serfdom decreased in Western Europe and increased in Eastern Europe. African slaves in Americas increased European economy.
Oh, it's so cold. All my crops are dying.
There's no more food. I'm starving.
Me too.
There were two phases of the Little Ice Age, the first beginning around 1290 and continuing until the late 1400s, a slightly warmer period in the 1500s, after which the climate lessened substantially, and the coldest period between 1645 and 1715. During this coldest phase of the Little Ice Age, there are indications that average winter temperatures in Europe and North America were as much as 2 degrees Celsius lower than at present. The Baltic Sea froze over, as did many of the rivers and lakes in Europe. These conditions led to widespread crop failure, famine, and population decline. Jerome illustrates an incident during the tulipomania, or the craze for tulips, that swept the Netherlands and much of Europe during the 17th century. The tulip, originally imported from Turkey in the 16th century, became an increasingly viable commodity. By 1636, tulipomania peaked, and when the market crashed, speculators were left with as little as 5% of their original investments. In this scene, a nobleman guards an exceptional bloom as soldiers trample flower beds in a vain attempt to stabilize the tulip market by limiting the supply.
In this time period, political leadership in Europe passed from Spain to the Netherlands and then to England and France. In 1516, Charles I became the monarch of Spain. 3 years later, he was elected as the Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire as Charles V. It is due to Charles' efforts that parts of Europe, such as Austria and southern Germany, returned to the Catholic doctrine. King Charles fought the German wars of religion in 1546, but German princes fought him to a stalemate. After Charles abdicated both of his thrones in 1556, his son, Philip II, then became the King of Spain. To evade any check on his power, King Charles I of England ruled for 11 years without summoning Parliament, England's representative body. When he finally was forced to summon Parliament after a rebellion in Scotland in 1640, King Charles I refused to acknowledge the Parliament's insistence that the king would never again ignore the body's traditional rights. He then attempted to arrest his critics in the House of Commons in 1642, therefore plunging the kingdom into the English Civil War. After bloody fighting, King Charles I was militarily defeated in 1648. Even then, he refused to compromise. Therefore, a year later, a rump parliament purged of his supporters, ordered his execution, and he was executed.
Philip II, King of Spain, wanted to invade England to avenge the country for its execution of Mary, Queen of Scots, Spain's Catholic ally, in 1587. This marked a turning point in years of dispute and religious differences between Catholic Spain and Protestant England. The Spanish also saw England as a competitor in trade and expansion in the New World of the Americas. In 1588, Philip II intended to sail with his navy and army, a total of around 30,000 men, up the English Channel to link up with the forces led by Duke of Parma in the Spanish Netherlands. From there, they would invade England and bring the country under the Catholic rule of Spain.